am Ivan Vasilyev-Shlemov, and I will be your enthusiastic host today. Okay, let's dive right into this explainer covering Anton Chekhov's renowned play, The Proposal. We have a highly structured, perfectly logical presentation ready for you regarding my perfectly logical request for... Excuse me, Ivan Vasilievich, but your tone is far too squeaky, and you're entirely missing the socioeconomic context. Give me the clicker. You're supposed to be analyzing Chekhov's text, not just giving a speech. Natalia Stepanova, I assure you my tone is entirely appropriate. I was just getting to the 19th century agrarian context, and as the host—
But you're not the sole host, Ivan, and you're already making a mess of the introduction. If we're going to explain our own lives to these viewers, we absolutely need to do it properly.
Children, please. Let's not lose our tempers before we even get to the analytical meat of the text. I am Stefan Stepanovich Chubukov, Natalia's father, and let's just examine the pure, unadulterated affection between our two families, shall we? The wizen-faced frump, the stuffed sausage, these are the sophisticated terms of endearment Chekhov actually penned for us. Stepan Stepanovich, those were insults. You called me a stuffed sausage right after you kicked me out of your house. And you completely deserved it, you malicious, double-faced intriguer. See, viewers? The playful banter simply leaps off the page, a true testament to Chekhov's brilliant satire of the landed gentry. We aristocrats can be so deeply petty underneath our formal manners. Let's keep this explainer moving, shall we?
Okay, I'm taking over the presentation. Let's move to the next topic and see how this builds. Before we even get to the ridiculous notion of a proposal, we have to address the core territorial dispute that literally defines this entire source text. Who truly owns Oxen Meadows? I do. It's right there in the historical records. Nonsense. You are dropping the audience straight into a web of your own lies, Ivan. We have owned that land for nearly 300 years. This explainer is about facts, and the absolute fact is the meadows are ours. Hear me out, I implore you both. The question here is purely legal. It's not even debatable. The only debate, Ivan, is how you can stand there and tell such blatant falsehoods to our viewers.
Let's consider the source's introductory article on Russian wedding customs. It shows exactly how a respectable 19th century groom is actually supposed to act. He fetches the bride, he answers difficult riddles from her friends, he pays cash if he guesses wrong. It's a performative, deeply romantic tradition. Well, I can answer riddles. But contrast that grand expectation with your reality, Ivan. Showing up trembling like a leaf, immediately starting a screaming match over a completely worthless patch of land, and then fainting on our drawing room sofa. It's honestly pathetic. You didn't even pay a shoe ransom, you just complained about your eyebrows twitching. Chekhov uses you to completely mock the traditional romantic hero, and it's brilliant.
Now wait just a minute. The crucial point here is my attire. Do you see what I am wearing? A dress jacket, white gloves. I arrived in my evening dress specifically to ask for your hand in marriage, Natalia. Does a man wear white gloves to argue about land? Obviously not. I was strictly following the formal etiquette of our social class. To be completely fair to my daughter, my precious angel, when you first walked in looking like you were headed to a New Year's Eve ball, I said to myself, he's come to borrow money. I shan't give him any. Honored Stefan Stepanovich, I came with a request. I was excited. I needed water. I was trying to be formal and polite, but you both immediately assumed the worst. It really just says so much about our neighborhood's intense paranoia.
Furthermore, I would really appreciate a little understanding regarding my delicate constitution. The text clearly documents my severe medical conditions, palpitations, extreme excitability, a twitch in my right eyebrow, and when I try to sleep, a sudden pull in my left side that shoots all the way up to my shoulder. I am 35, a critical age, mind you. I urgently need a quiet and regular life. Oh my goodness, listen to him groan. Viewers, this is supposed to be an explainer, not a visit to the apothecary. A real man of our era doesn't just catalog his twitches and pulls while trying to woo a bride. You're a total hypochondriac, Yvonne. It's a brilliant comedic device by the playwright to show your utter weakness, which directly contrasts with your fierce possessiveness over property.
Give me that clicker back. Let's look at the actual facts of the Oxen Meadows dispute to properly educate our audience. My claim, as fully documented, is that my aunt's grandmother gave the free use of these meadows in perpetuity to the peasants of your father's grandfather, in return for which they were to make bricks for her. They had the land for 40 years and naturally got into the habit of regarding it as their own. It's a simple misunderstanding of generational use. No, you're entirely mistaken. Both my grandfather and great-grandfather reckoned that their land extended to Burnt Marsh, which mathematically and geographically means that Oxen Meadows were ours. I don't see what there is to argue about. Your aunt's grandmother's brick-making peasants have absolutely nothing to do with it.
We are arguing over 5 decetins of land, with maybe 300 rubles. It's about the principle. I have the documents. Well, I'll send my mowers out to the meadows this very day. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer agonizing stubbornness I had to deal with. There I am, clutching my heart in absolute agony, trying to explain simple property law to you, while you just stand there shouting. The actual proposal was entirely forgotten amidst all your screaming. We are basically a microcosm of aristocratic entitlement. My screaming. You were yelling so loudly my papa had to come running in to see what the noise was. You were waving your arms about in our own house. You can shout yourself hoarse, Ivan, but I absolutely won't give up my land. Mine, ours.
All right, let's pause right here so I can play the enthusiastic teacher for a moment. We are looking at the literary definition of a farce, a comic dramatic work using buffoonery, horseplay, and ludicrously improbable situations. I point this out to you, our learners, because watching these two nearly give themselves aneurysms over a patch of worthless grass and totally forgetting they actually want to get married is a textbook example of Chekhov's farcical genius. Their petty, crude behavior wrapped up in high society clothing is exactly what drives the comedy. Okay, carry on, you two.
Happily. Let's look at the actual quote, shall we? Bring him back. Bring him here. After you and your father violently kicked me out of your home, calling me a grabber and an intriguer, your father finally let slip that I had originally come to propose. And what happened? You threw a hysterical fit. You wailed and collapsed into an easy chair, practically begging your father to fetch me back. I was overheated. We were all a little heated. But honestly, looking at it through a modern analytical lens, it perfectly captures the pragmatism of a 19th century woman of my station. I recognized a prime economic opportunity walking out the door, so I conceded the point. I admitted the meadows were yours just to secure the match. But I will absolutely not concede this next point. I am hijacking the deck because we must establish the truth here. We changed the subject to hunting dogs, and you had the absolute audacity to claim your dog, Guess, is better than our Squeezer. Well, because he is. Squeezer is overshot. His lower jaw is shorter than his upper, which means he's a terrible hunter. He worries sheep instead of actually running after the fox. Squeezer is a thoroughbred, he's young, and he has a flawless pedigree. Guess is old, pug-nosed, and as ugly as a worn-out cab horse. You are blind or a fool if you can't see Squeezer is 100 times better. Not for 25 rubles, I wouldn't take 5 Squeezers for him. Oh, my heart, my palpitations are starting again.
Ha! And look at how quickly it devolved again. Tallying up the absolute character assassination these two engaged in over a hunting dog is just staggering. I called Lomov a pettifogger, an unscrupulous lawyer. I called him an intriguer, a malicious double-faced Jesuit. I even called him a turnip ghost, which is essentially a pale, scary apparition. And you said my grandfather was a drunkard, and that my mother was humpbacked. Well, you said my aunt ran away with an architect. It's magnificent. We completely abandoned any pretense of civilized society and went straight for the throat. And remember, all of this vitriol, this total breakdown of neighborly relations, is supposed to be the preamble to a romantic marriage proposal.
It was far from romantic. It was practically lethal. My heart simply couldn't take the stress of your contradictory nature, Natalia. My shoulders came off, figuratively speaking, of course. My temples sparked, and I collapsed right into an armchair. I die, a doctor. I was entirely exhausted and completely unresponsive. The sheer physical comedy of the suitor literally dying on the floor perfectly punctuates the absurdity of the whole situation. I have to admit, I genuinely thought you were dead. You were just lying there. Papa was running around asking for water, for a doctor, threatening to cut his own throat or shoot himself because he was so burdened with a grown-up daughter. It was absolutely terrifying. I was wailing.
Mapping out this absurd timeline really shows the sheer chaotic pacing of that afternoon. I honestly hadn't realized how ridiculous we were until looking at it like this. Step 1, you arrive trembling. Step 2, we scream about land. Step 3, we kick you out. Step 4, I scream to get you back. Step 5, we immediately start screaming about dogs. Step 6, you faint dead away. And Step 7, before I even regain full consciousness, your father is literally shoving us together. Hurry up and get married, I said. She's willing. Look, I just wanted a weight off my shoulders. I made you kiss, gave you my blessing, and told you to leave me in peace. It was the most efficient engagement in Russian history.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer, and this final provocative question. Is marriage about romance or simply an economic transaction? You see, the introduction to our play notes a very specific tendency. Wealthy families seeking to tie ties with other wealthy families to increase their estates. Lomov is a wealthy landowner. We are wealthy landowners. Economic good sense ensures that the proposal happens despite the fact that all three of us are incredibly quarrelsome people. We did get engaged in the end, though, even though my foot had completely gone to sleep. Yes, we got engaged. But you still must admit that guess is worse than squeezer. Better. Worse. Champagne? Champagne? And there you have it, folks. The proposal survives the quarreling purely because it makes good financial sense. So what do you think? Does money conquer all, even turnip ghosts and worn-out cab horses? Thank you for joining us for this explainer, and keep learning.